Hello and welcome to the IaaS Academy. In this AWS how-to guide, we're going to show you how to delete an Amazon S3 Glacier vault, which may have some archives in it that you no longer need. Let's take a look at how to do this in this session. Now, Amazon S3 offers secure, durable, and extremely low-cost cloud storage classes for data archiving and long-term backup. I wanted to quickly point out some of the key features of Amazon Glacier before we went on into the lab. So data is stored in Amazon Glacier as archives, and you can upload a single file as an archive or aggregate multiple files into a tar or zip format and then upload that entire archive to Glacier. Single archives can be up to 40 terabytes in size. Archives are immutable, meaning that once an archive has been created, it cannot be updated, and this helps you meet all of your compliance and regulatory requirements. Amazon Glacier uses vaults as containers to store the archives. And under a single AWS account, you can have up to 1,000 S3 Glacier vaults, and vault logs allow you to enforce compliance controls. So let's take a look at how you can delete old vaults you may no longer need, and especially if they contain archives that you no longer want. Now, Amazon S3 vaults can be deleted via the console or the command line interface. However, this is only possible when the vault itself is empty. So if you need to delete a non-empty vault, a vault that has some archives in it you no longer need, then you must first delete all existing archives before deleting the vault. Sounds simple enough, but in fact, in order to actually delete your S3 archives, you need to either write code or use the command line interface. And in this video, we're going to show you how to use the command line interface to delete your archives, and then subsequently, you can jump on into the console and delete your Amazon S3 vault. Now, the commands to actually perform the delete operations are provided in the descriptions below. Now, in order to perform this particular lab, you are going to have to download and install the AWS command line interface if you haven't already done so. I just want to quickly show you where you can get that from. You just need to go ahead and Google the Amazon CLI, and then that will take you to a link where you can download and install the command line interface. And depending on the operating system that you're using on your workstation, you can download an appropriate installer for that operating system. So I'm using Windows 10. You can go ahead and download this 64-bit Windows installer if you're using Windows 10, and then just run through the setup process, accept the defaults as they are, and install the command line interface on your machine. Okay, so I've just logged on to my AWS Management Console, which has the S3 Glacier Vault that I no longer need. Now, I've actually logged in with the root account credentials, and you don't want to be doing day-to-day operations with your root user account. You want to make sure that you have designated personnel in your organization that are responsible for different sets of services within the AWS platform, ideally belonging to groups to which you assign the right set of permissions. So if we go into identity and access management very quickly, I want to show you the user that we're going to be performing these operations with. In this sample account where I have the actual vault, I've got two users. The user that I'm interested in is Kevin. He's one of our storage administrators, and he belongs to the storage admins group. Now, for the purposes of this lab and to keep things simple, the storage admin group has got full access to Amazon S3 and Glacier services. However, you probably want to make this as granular as possible in order to follow the principle of least privileges. If we go back to the user, if we actually then click on the username itself and go to security credentials, you will see that the user has got console-based access, but currently doesn't have any access keys for programmatic access. Now, this is important if we are going to be using the command line interface in order to delete the archive that we no longer need. That can only be done with code or using the CLI. So Kevin, our storage administrator, is going to require some access keys which you need to configure your command line interface with. So let's go ahead and create a set of access keys for Kevin. Okay, and your access keys are only displayed at this point in time and only once. So it's important that you actually download the keys. The moment you click this close button over here, okay, your secret access key is no longer visible. And if you've not made a note of it, you will need to recreate your keys again. So whilst we are on this page itself, I'm going to show you very quickly how to configure the command line interface. For those of you who already know how to do this, feel free to fast forward to the next part of this how-to guide. So to configure your command line interface, depending on which operating system you're using. So if it's the Mac, you need to bring up your terminal. If it's Windows like me, then you'll need to bring up the command prompt. Okay, so this is my command prompt, and what I need to do is configure the command line interface for Kevin so that he's able to log on to this AWS account and access the Glacier environment and the S3 environments, as well as per the policies that we assign Kevin to. Now, because Kevin is one particular IAM user, your system may have multiple profiles for different users in your AWS account. So I'm going to create a particular profile for Kevin, and the way you do that is you do AWS configure -- profile, and then we put in Kevin. So Kevin's profile is being created, and you're going to get prompted for the access key ID, the secret access key, the region that is your default region, and then you need to provide those pieces of information to configure the command line interface, in this particular case for Kevin's profile. Okay, so here we are, a prompt for the access key ID. So let's just grab the access key very quickly, plug that value in there. If you press enter, the next prompt is for the AWS secret access key, which I'm going to show you, but you want to keep this a real secret. Okay, and there it goes in there. The default region name, you can leave it as US East -1, and for the default output format, leave that blank and press enter. What we've done now is we've basically configured a profile for Kevin with our command line interface, and we'll be interfacing with the AWS account and the Glacier services using Kevin's profile next. Okay, so let me take you to the Amazon S3 Glacier service and show you the vault that we want to actually quickly delete, and then we'll proceed to do just that. You can see that it is 4.3 terabytes in size, and it's got 86,000 odd number of archives. So this is the vault that we want to delete. If we actually try to delete the vault just there by clicking on delete vault, it's going to come up with an error message, and you'll see it says error deleting vault, vault is not empty or recently written to. So you need to empty your vaults first before you can actually delete them. So let's jump into the command line interface, and I'm going to show you the commands to run in order to first perform the necessary prerequisites to then go ahead and delete the actual archive, and then subsequently we'll delete the vault. Okay, so next we're going to take a look at the steps required in order to delete your archive so that you can then delete your vault. So step number 1 is to actually run an inventory job on your AWS Glacier vault. Now you need to do this in order to work out exactly what the archives are in your vault. And you need to run a command in the command line interface for that, and the command is shown on the screen. Now all of these commands are available in the resources section of this video just below, so feel free to obviously copy and paste them. You need to make sure, however, that where I have indicated placeholders, you put in the appropriate values. So you obviously need to put in your vault name, not AWS example vault, and your account ID for the vault where the vault resides that you want to obviously work with. So this particular job actually runs an inventory to look at all of the archives and to basically create an inventory of all of the archives of your Glacier vault. Now, this is a standard command you would run on a Linux machine, perhaps, or even a Mac. But if you are running this command on a Windows machine, then I have found that this particular command doesn't work. Okay, so for all of those Windows users out there, the actual command that you want to be running is that shown on the screen. Now, it looks really similar to the one above, but you'll notice that there are double quotes, okay, in the inventory retrieval type. Okay, so it's for that purpose that the previous command doesn't actually work. You need to use the command shown over here on Windows machines when you're using the command prompt. So let's jump on into my command prompt and actually run this command. Okay, so this was the previous screen we were looking at where we looked at the specifications of our vault. Now I've just copied the command into my notepad over here just so that I can easily work with it. Remember, I need to change the vault name to the name of my vault. So I'll just copy the name of my vault, which is there, into that notepad document. Okay, so that's just there. And obviously I also need to change the account ID. So my account ID, you can find your account ID if you just click on the drop down arrow against your account name, and you can just grab the account ID there and paste that into the notepad document as well. Okay, there we are. So just paste that as well. And then we'll run this command in our command prompt. Okay, Okay, and there's my command prompt. So I'm just going to paste that command in there. Now remember, we are running this command in the context of our storage admin user. Remember, his name is Kevin. So we've created a profile for Kevin in our command line interface, and we need to, use that profile in order to run this command, because Kevin is the only one who's got permissions to do so. So at the end of the command, you do a space -- profile and then Kevin, because that's his name, and then you enter that command in there. Right, and that's it. So that has now created a job. You'll see the job ID is provided to you over there to run an inventory against your vault. Now what you want to do is copy that job inventory ID. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that. I'm going to paste that back into my Notepad document, because we're going to use this job ID to see the status of the inventory task that we just initiated against our vault. Okay, so the next thing we need to look at is step 2. So step 2 is we're going to use the describe job command to check the status of the previous retrieve job that we just initiated, and the command for that is shown on the screen. Again, all of these commands are shown below in the resources section of this video. Now, once again, you're going to have to replace the placeholders with your exact values, so your vault name, and in this particular case, you need to define the job ID, which is the one that we just copied across into our Notepad document earlier. So let's just go back to the console and to our command prompt. Okay, so I have just pasted the command that we need to run in my Notepad document, and obviously I'm going to change those place values again. So we've got vault name, which says example vault, and we don't want that. We want our vault name, which is that one over there. So let's just copy that and put that in there. Okay, so that's our vault name, and the account ID as well is, you need to change it to your account ID. Okay, and obviously the job ID. Now the job ID is what I copied over there, so you need to take that from what's placed inside the quotes and just replace all of that with your job ID. So that's my job ID. Okay, and then we grab all of that. Okay, so that's the AWS Glacier describe job, vault name, my account ID, and my job ID, and we're going to paste that into the command prompt. So let's do that. Okay, and there is our command prompt. Okay, so we've got our job ID in there, and we're just going to also obviously run this command under the context, under the profile of Kevin. So profile Kevin. Okay, and just run that. And you get back an output, as you can see on the screen. Now you will note what this output says. The action is inventory retrieval, so we're retrieving an inventory. It's not completed yet, okay, so that is currently set to false, and the status code is in progress. You're going to have to wait out a little bit, okay, in order for the inventory to complete before we can proceed with step 3. And this is actually going to take some amount of time to complete, anything from 3.5 to 4.5 hours. So you will have to wait it out. So I'm going to pause the video over here, come back, and we'll rerun this command to see if the job is complete after some time. Okay, so I've just resumed recording again. It's been over 3 hours, and what I want to do is rerun that command again to see whether or not the job is complete. So I'm just going to paste in the command in my command prompt. There it is. And obviously, remember, we're going to run this under the context of, under the profile of Kevin. Okay, so Kevin is running this particular command. Okay, and we're just going to enter that and see whether the actual job is now complete. Okay, and so there we are. The action is inventory retrieval. The status code is succeeded. The status message is succeeded. And the complete status is set to true as well. So indeed, our job has been completed. We've completed the inventory task. Now let's go and see exactly what's in the inventory by running a third command, and I'll just show you what that is. Okay, so we're going to move on to step 3 now that we have completed our inventory retrieval task. Okay, and step 3 actually allows us to get an output of that inventory and basically list out all of the archives into a file called the output.json file. And this is the file that we can use to reference all of our archives and then subsequently go in and delete those archives. The command that you want to run is AWS Glacier get job output vault, and then obviously you need to replace the placeholder with the name of your vault, replace the account ID with your account ID, and replace the job ID with the job ID that you ran okay, in order to check, for instance, the status of the job, and that is outputted to an output.json file. So let me bring up my Notepad document again, and we're going to replace those values, those placeholder values, as we did before. Okay, so here is my Notepad document. So we've run all of these commands so far. I'm just going to paste this one in there. This is the command that we are going to run next to get the job output. And obviously our vault name is that over there. So S3 Glacier. So let's just put that in there. Account ID. So that's our account ID. So we're just going to put that in our account ID. Okay, and obviously it's the same job that we're going to be referencing, which is in fact the job that ran to do the inventory. And that is then going to be outputted to a JSON file called output.json. So copy all of that, bring up that command prompt again. Okay, so here we are back at my command prompt. Now, before pasting the command in the command prompt, just watch out for where you are in your Windows directory structure. Those of you who are using Windows, you actually don't want to run this command in the System32 directory because you may have some restrictions in creating files. So you just want to navigate away from this directory to perhaps a temporary directory. I've got a temporary directory called temp directory. So I'm just going to go into the temp directory, and from this directory, I'm going to run that command. Remember, it needs to be run under the profile of Kevin. So Kevin's profile, and then we can just run through that command. Okay, and as you can see, we've got a status code of 200, which means it was all successful. Content type application JSON. So if I do a dir over there, you will see that in fact I have got my output.json file. You will also notice that it's a very large file indeed, and that's obvious because I've got some 86,000 odd archives to go through. Okay, so I tried to open this file in Notepad on a Windows machine, and basically it doesn't work because it's so huge. So I've installed Notepad++, which is something that you can download and then just open up this file. I just want to show you what its contents looks like. Okay, and you can see that this is what the file looks like. So it starts off with an archive list, and individually you've got individual archive IDs. So you can see how big this file actually is, okay? But each individual archive has got its own archive ID. So you've got an archive ID followed by an archive description, and obviously a SHA-256 tree hash as well. And then again, another archive ID, details of that archive, and so on and so forth. Now, what you have to do is actually delete all of these archives before you can delete the vault. This is a bit cumbersome to read. I've got another tool that will actually help you extract the archive IDs, because when you run the command to actually delete an archive, you have to reference the archive ID. Okay, and that tool is called JQ. And if you do a quick Google search for JQ download and actually go to the GitHub pages for JQ, okay, what it is, it's a lightweight and flexible command line JSON processor. The actual output that we have is in a JSON format. And JQ is similar to how you would see it for JSON data. So you can use it to slice and filter and map transform structured data with the same ease as you would with SED, awk, and grep that you're probably familiar with, especially those of you guys from a Linux background. So what this will allow us to do is basically pass through the actual output.json document, and then we can actually filter out those archive IDs into another document that we can then subsequently reference with ease. So for that, what you need to do is you need to download the latest JQ version, and I'm running a Windows machine, so I'm going to do it for the Windows 64-bit. You need to save this executable file somewhere. Now, I would highly recommend that you put it in a folder of itself. So let me just quickly copy and paste this into a folder on my C drive, and I'll show you which folder I'm putting it in. Okay, so I've just copied that Windows executable file, the jq.exe file, to a folder called JQ in my root directory in my C drive. I'm just going to rename this very quickly as well to just call it JQ, okay? And basically, you're going to run this executable from your command prompt in order to extract all of the archive IDs into a separate file. So you have just one list of all of your archive IDs rather than all the other, content that you saw previously in my Notepad++ document. Now, In order to do that from within the command prompt, you would have to navigate to this JQ folder. But if you want to run the JQ executable from any location, regardless of where you are in your command prompt, then you can set some environmental variables within your system properties, within your advanced settings on your Windows machine to point to this location. So I'm just going to show you how that's done very quickly. So I'm just going to copy that address. Okay, and I'm going to bring up the system details, the advanced system details. So if you do sys on your search bar there, and it's part of the control panel. If you've not done this before, just open that up. Okay, and then go into advanced system settings. And we're defining some environmental variables, which is under the advanced tab. That brings up this particular dialog box. Click on path, click edit. Okay, and you can see I've done it there already. So you just need to click new just to show you how that's done, and then paste in the address that you just copied. Okay, so I'm not going to do that again, obviously, but that's fairly simple how it's done. So it's C:/JQ. That's where the JQ executable is. Now, if I basically run the JQ executable from any location, command prompt knows that it can find it because I've defined it as my environmental variables. So just click OK to that, and we're good to go. Okay, and you can close that box as well. Okay, so step 4 is to extract the archive IDs from that output.json file using the JQ utility. Now, if you're running this on a standard Linux machine, this is the command you're going to run. So it's jq.archivelist, and then you're going to basically extract the archive IDs from the output.json and extract it and basically put it into the archive IDs.txt file. So any text file, you can name this whatever you like. Now, if you're using a Windows machine, which is what I am, the command is slightly different. You need to have double quotes, okay, against the archive list archive ID part. So that's applicable for Windows machines when you're running the command prompt. So just be aware of that when you're running this. So let's go ahead and put in this command into our command prompt so that we can extract the archive IDs to a separate file. Okay, so this is my command prompt. We're looking in the temp directory where, if you remember, I've got my output.json file. Okay, and we want to extract the archive IDs from this one. So we're just going to run the command. Now, I'm running the one that's applicable for Windows command prompts with the double quotes. Okay, and I'm extracting it to a file called archiveids.txt. So enter for that command, and you will see that the prompt comes up. If I do a dir again, there's my archive IDs there that has just been created. So let's actually bring that up and see what it looks like. So there it is, archive IDs. I'm going to open that up in Notepad++, and that's what it looks like. A list of all of my archive IDs. You will note that it's got 86,085 in total, and that makes sense because obviously I've got 86,084 archives. So why the extra one? Well, it's just got an extra line added at the end, so nothing to get worried about. Basically, your list of archives has just been listed out there as the archive IDs, which we will use in order to delete our archives. So you basically saw that we had so many different archive IDs to go through. Now, the command to actually delete the archives by referencing the archive ID in that archive ID text file is shown on the screen here. So it's AWS Glacier delete archive, the vault name. Obviously, you put in your vault name, your account ID, and you specify the individual archive ID. So that will actually help you delete the archive. It's okay if you're doing 3, 5, maybe 10 archives, but if you're going to be doing 86,000 archives, then it's going to take a really long time. So what you could do is obviously create a script in order to run that command for every single archive ID. Now, I've got a sample script ready for you in the resources section of this video just below, and what you will be able to do is obviously use this script. The script is a simple Windows batch file wherein we set some variables. So we've defined what our vault name is, the file that contains all of the archive IDs, okay, and then we do a for loop which basically reads that file. And then for every line that it reads, for every archive ID that it reads, it will run the AWS Glacier delete archive command. Obviously, you need to make sure you reference the right account ID. We're referencing the variables for the vault, the line, and don't forget, you're going to be running the command under the profile of, in my case, Kevin, and obviously in your case, you will have your own profile configured for the CLI. and then it counts up to the next line, and then it carries on, so on and so forth. So feel free to use this script that's available to use as well. So let's give this a test. Let me just quickly bring up the script in the Notepad++ application. Okay, so here we are. This is the script. I've just opened that up in Notepad++. And I've also already saved it in the temp directory from where we're going to run this batch file. As you can see, it's all ready to go. So let's bring up the command prompt. Okay, so here we are. This is my command prompt. And as you can see, we're already in the temp directory. If I do a dir, that will list out all of the items in this directory. And you can see there's my vault.batch file that is there waiting to be run. So it's fairly simple. We can just call the actual batch file and hit enter. And that will go through line by line, pulling across the archive IDs from the archive_id.txt file, and subsequently run the delete command against each archive ID. Okay, and as you can see, it has already started doing it, and it's basically going through. So it's deleting the archive ID, it's then counting to the next archive ID, deleting that archive ID, and so on and so forth. And this is obviously going to take a little bit of time to run. Remember, there are 86,000 odd archives to delete. So I'm just going to pause the video over here, let this complete, and then we'll come back right to it. Okay, so actually this particular batch program ran over a few days before it finally completed and cleared or deleted all of my archives. This is a screenshot of the archives that were cleared. And as you can see, we went 86,082, 83, and then the final archive, 84. And now that the archives have all been deleted, we can proceed to actually delete the Glacier Vault itself, as we no longer need it. So we can go to the management console for this. Okay, and here we are on the management console. If we go onto S3 Glacier, you want to make sure that you're looking in the right region. So my Glacier Vault was actually in the North Virginia region. So I'm just going to go back to the North Virginia region. There's the vault over there. And as you can see, there are no size against it because it's completely empty, because there are no more archives left in the vault. So we can just click on the vault, click delete vault. And it says, are you sure you want to do this? And we say, yep, we're happy with doing that. And that's it. It's gone. The vault has now been deleted. Okay, so we hope you enjoyed this extended walkthrough in how to delete your Glacier archives and Glacier vaults. If you enjoyed this particular video and this how-to guide, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and hit the bell icon to be notified. And of course, for AWS training courses and practice exams, visit us at iaasacademy.com. Thank you.